Greetings everybody, this is Sky Earth Goddess. I'm back with another video, and this is just an installment for my I Am the Bridge series. And this is just something that I've noticed with people when it comes to the friction between the current relationships between blacks and whites specifically. Just talking about those two races of people. I noticed that black people tend to call out white people in the past for atrocities that they have done, like such as slavery, colonization, things like that. And, they call them out and say, well, you can't trust white people because they did this and that, or white people are not good people because they did this and that. And what makes that statement a little cray to me is that you're calling out things that have happened in the past, and you don't see white people doing these things anymore. So you're calling out groups of white people that you have never really encountered or did not exist in your time period at all. And then what kind of irks me about the statement is the same people who are complaining about the atrocities that white people did, which happened. I'm not saying they didn't happen, but it'll be those same type of people. And then they will also talk about the things that black people have contributed to society. So it'd be like a lot of black people are saying that the Moors, or the North Africans, the Moors came into Europe in year 711 or around that time, and they civilized Europe, and they taught European people, white people per se, how to cook, how to clean themselves, how to be civilized, how to have literature and art and music and culture and all of these things, and that white people would be nowhere without these contributions of these Moors. And in the same breath, they will say the Moors taught the quote-unquote white man everything, but then turn around and say, but white people are ruthless because they did A, B, C, and D. And it's like, you have to get to a point where if you're critically thinking these two statements, like critically looking at these two statements and thinking about them and dissecting these two narratives, you realize people have to pick a narrative. Because what you are saying is that these Moors, these wonderful quote-unquote black people from North Africa, taught white people everything, but they somehow didn't teach them how to be ruthless colonizers, or they didn't teach them how to spread the atrocities that they did, but they taught them all the good stuff, but they didn't teach them the bad. And you have to realize that we're talking about the Moors, okay? Historically, the Moors were not good people. They weren't the best group of black people. They really did a lot of pillaging and colonizing themselves. And they taught this particular art of war, or this particular style of conquering nations of people to Europeans when they came into Europe. We get it. They did teach Europeans a lot, but you have to pick a narrative. You cannot say that the Moors came into Europe and taught Europeans art and culture and science and reading, but some kind of way the white people learned how to colonize and pillage by themselves on their own with no help. Like, I get it. Everybody has the capacity to do atrocities, and I'm not saying that the Moors are solely responsible for a lot of the bad things that the past white people have done in the past. But what I'm saying is, there was some kind of input that the Moors did with the white people in teaching them how to behave when it came to other nations of people. Because the Moors had already conquered other nations. They had already been to other places. They had already hurt a lot of people before they came into Europe. And those same tactics that they had, they sat there and taught white people these things. They taught them how to be colonizers. Where do you think white people learn how to be quote unquote ruthless from? if black people, so quote unquote, like you guys are saying, taught white people everything, guess what? They taught them everything. They taught them how to be colonizers. They taught them how to sail and go to these nations, and taught them strategic ways how to conquer nations of people. The game of chess, which is a game of conquering and strategy, was invented by the Moors, and it was a simple breakdown of how they conquered nations. That's what the game was originally based off of. In the game, the white chess pieces ironically represented the Moors because they viewed themselves as the white people, or the blessed people that had the ability and had the intellect and had the grace from the higher power or whatever to conquer other nations of people who were represented by the black people, by the black pieces, and they were considered lowly because they were the black. That is where chess comes from. These people learned the art of colonization and the art of war, and they taught white people how to do this. Like, you guys are missing a huge link between the white people being colonizers and the Moors. You cannot say that Moors taught them everything and skip and glaze over the fact that the Moors are the ones that taught them how to do the atrocities that they did. Who do you think trained them on how to colonize, how to be strategic as hell in colonizing, how to be strategic and strategic in what they were doing to conquer people? Conquering other nations of people is not easy. You have to be very strategic, very manipulative, highly manipulative, and able to pull this off. This had to be taught to them, and the people who taught them these things were black people. You are complaining about colonization and the atrocities that they did when they learned it from black people. They may not have learned it from the same black people who were enslaved, quote unquote enslaved, because I'm not a true believer in slavery. You may not be the same group of black people who are the true American Indians, those people, but it was a group of very dark-skinned, very advanced black people who taught white people how to do the horrible things that they did. That is where they learned it from. You have to pick a narrative. You cannot be talking about the Moors and all the wonderful things they did and glaze over the fact that they were ruthless people who killed other nations of people, unalived other nations of people, and taught white people to do the same thing. White people were sitting ducks. They did not have a lot of advancement. I'm not saying they didn't have a lot of advancement, because they did. They did have things that were going on in Europe in their own right. But, and I'm not going to say they're sitting ducks. No, they had their own stuff. They had their own civilizations. May not have been as advanced as the Moors. It may have been as advanced. We don't know when law back then. But they taught them. White people were not pillaging and colonizing until they learned it from the Moors. It wasn't until the Moors came and taught them everything that they started doing that stuff. So the next time you complain about the atrocities that white people did, and then in the same breath want to give praise to the Moors, think about where these atrocities were learned from and who taught white people how to do the things that they did. Because there's a link there, and everyone that I've seen is glazing over it or forgetting that white people learned this from somewhere. And I'm not saying white people are bad. I'm saying the past things they did in the past, the atrocities that they did in the past, were learned from the Moors. There's a link between how Moorish people conquered people, look it up, and how Europeans were doing the same tactics when they started conquering nations of people. Who do you think taught them how to sail, where to sail? Like, they didn't know anything about the Americas. Who do you think told them how to get to different countries within Africa and the Americas and what to do when they got there? They learned this from the Moors. So stop, seriously, just pick a narrative, because you cannot keep doing this, praising the Moors for doing one thing and skipping over the bad things they taught them as well. So I just wanted to get on here and talk about that. The name of this video is probably going to be Pick a Narrative or something along those lines. But yeah, you guys can tell me what you think about it in the comments, and just really research the Moors and their tactics, and you'll see it's directly reflected in how white people acted in that time period. So take credit, black people, for what you have contributed to the world, bad and good, because they would not have the tactics and the manipulation to conquer and colonize if it wasn't for you. So, yeah, I hope you let that sink in and you continue to have a good day. All right. Bye bye.